I'm JD. Welcome to my channel. It's been a while since I've been on camera for reasons that a few people know. Anyway, I'm back. I'm back in maybe almost full strength. I got a thing I got to deal with on Friday coming up, and then I'll be good after that. So anyway, what I have here is a basket of fun. So that's what I'd like to call it. It was given to me by a gentleman named Paul, and this is what a clock looks like when it doesn't have the rest of it. So I'm going to just reach forward to one of my old Carriage clocks and say this is likely what this thing looks like. And you can see the platform balance on the top of the Carriage clock here, and then all the mechanisms are on the inside here. And this one here is very nice. It's a Mappin and Webb Carriage clock, and it's got all kinds of cool stuff here happening, and a little door in the back, and you can wind that Carriage clock using this key here, and you got to make sure this key is solidly in there as you wind the Carriage clock. It's funny with these Carriage clocks, you always kind of wind them counterclockwise, and there you can see the platform balance starting to tick. This one's in excellent condition. I had stripped this down and cleaned it. I bought this. This is my own Carriage clock, so this is not for a customer, and so I'll just leave it at that. I'm not going to bother setting the time for it or any of that crazy stuff. I just want to put this in so it doesn't fall out again. You see, I'll just leave it like this. That should be good enough, and there we go. And it doesn't have a seconds hand, but that's fine, because if you're using a Carriage clock and you're fighting for Napoleon, you really didn't need to know the seconds for the battle. When it was hanging in your carriage and you were going to be late for the battle, you don't want to be late for a battle. Not a good thing. It's not good. It's not good. It's really bad. So anyway, so in this Carriage clock, what we have here is the platform balance. I had already done work on this clock before, I've been told, and this is the platform balance for it. And what I'm doing is I'm hoping that there's no issue here. And the platform balance, in the bottom of this platform balance, you've got a really nice little pinion down here, and that pinion is moved back and forth by a gear. You put all this leftover screws and stuff are in here, and that Paul gave me. I'll just put this out of the way, and let me pick this out of the bag. This is the actual mechanism. Oh, I can see something else here. Oh, he's taking it all apart too, so this thing is going to fall apart in my hands. Thank you very much. I wish I could have had this not taken apart, by the way, because now I'm concerned about all the little jobby doohickeys that are falling all over the place, because I'm not sure how this will go back if it's been taken apart. So I'd rather have this in a good position and screwed together, not like this. So I'm going to have issues now. So I'm going to see if I can tap these gears back in place so I know where the hell they go. All right, here's the problem with this particular movement. I've reassembled it nicely. And here is the concave wheel, maybe, I think. So this wheel interacts with the platform balance and the pinion on the platform balance that goes up through to the escapement. So what you do here is that there is, as you can see, this here is where the pivot from that wheel comes through, and you tighten this screw here and the plate, which moves this wheel that way when you tighten it, and so it kind of snugs up against the gear, the pinion, and that's how that works. So what I've got to do now is take these pins out, place this back, and as you can see, the pivot here is too short. So talking with Paul, who's a watchmaker, we decided to take a very small piece of blued steel, or brass even could work, but take a very small piece of metal and place that in behind this screwed area to see if that little extender would be good enough to push this over to in this direction here, to snug it up against the wheel. So I've got to kind of disassemble this, take these two pins out, and then separate it, which I don't want to do because it's such a pain to get these things back together again. Place it, get that wheel in place, and then see if I can find the right size piece of metal to fit in there. If I can't, I can get my lathe out and engrave a piece to the right size to fit in there to see if I can do an adapter. The good part about this here is if you look down on this thing here, there's a little more than half of the width of this plate here is available for the pin. So the pin could go just out slightly from there to push this forward. So we're going to get on with disassembly and placing this into the wheel back in. I'll record it and put it in fast motion, but it could be so frustrating that I've got to hold it and do all kinds of crap with it. So there you go. Oh my God, I think I did it in like 2 seconds. The other wheels didn't fall out. I don't think they did anyway. Everything looks like it's still in place. And when I turn, put a little bit of pressure on the mainspring here, this wheel here turns. Contrave wheel? You guys can correct me if I'm wrong. But so I got to put the pins back in here because I don't want this sliding out. I'm putting them in this way, that way the pins, well actually they're sticking out the other way, which probably is a little more dangerous. So maybe I should be putting them in this way. Don't know. Let me see. If I put them in this way, they're not going to poke me as much. And if I put them in the other way, they're definitely going to jab me. These are pretty big pins too, so maybe the pins are too big for this particular movement, but they're pretty common back in the 1800s and stuff. So you can see how that kind of almost aligns with the plate. So I'm pretty certain that that's how the pin needs to be attached. Now what I'd like to do here is find a way of supporting this thing. Maybe I grab it at the bottom here with some kind of a stand or something. That way I'm able to work with it sort of sideways. So let me see if I can figure something out here. So I've got a nice vise here that I might be able to angle, and I can see that on the outside of the plate, on the inside, it's pretty clean, but I really don't want to scratch anything. So I'm going to put a little piece of watch paper here like this, and then put that down like this and see if I can just grab this plate. Yeah, that's perfect. So that gives me a little bit of an angle to work with. So this here is I guess the regulation plate that's used to push this wheel back and forth. And then once the platform balance is installed, I'll know what to do. But I'm going to take the screw out here first. So in looking at this really closely, there's actually supposed to be another screw placed in here, and that's the screw that pushes down on the piece of metal. But I want to take a look on the inside anyway to see what this looks like. I don't know whether whether Paul, who gave me this to work on, has that screw. Not sure, but I think this is the base screw, and this other screw lines up here. And so I've got to find another screw to push down that will be able to adjust either way. So I'm not let me see if I can just take this plate off here. I think I can. There we go. I think I can. So now the other screw is actually, let me see if I can look inside here. So I can actually see the pivot for the other wheel. So the other screw, let me look at this thing here. Yeah. I think the other screw is barely threaded onto this thing here to push that in. So this could be a little bit of a challenge. The other screw is it can be a lot wider than this. So I'm just going to clean this area up just a bit here before I start working on it. It almost looked like somebody glued that in years ago. Don't know. I'd rather not have this material here. Way to go. Put a little scratch on it. That's my watchmaker's scratch. Someone will say, oh, there's another one, and another one. This stuff, I guess I can polish this after. There we go. Get some of this crap off. That's a bit better. Yeah, the plate just has to rest on here anyway, and then it just... All this is very polishable, by the way, so if a watchmaker wanted to just polish the back, there's a scratch here, there's a scratch here, you could polish the whole back of it and make it look pretty if you really wanted to, but this side here is not the side with the face on it. The other side is the side with the face on it, so it begs the question why you would want to. So now I'm going to get deep and dirty into this thing here and see if I can actually find some kind of a screw that would fit in here. It doesn't look like there's much thread in here at all, so that could be a problem. Yeah, and it also looks like there's a slight, see if I can zoom in on this, there's a slight crack as it goes towards here. I'm not sure if that's going to help at all. So let's see if I can hunt for a screw that might fit in there. I think I probably have over 1,000 vintage watch screws. This is one area where I have watch screws, and then there's another area where I have even more watch screws. So you can never have too many watch screws, by the way. So collect as many as you can as you progress in this watchmaking adventure. So I think I might have found a screw that works. This one right here. And this one actually goes from flush. It'll go from flush to pretty deep in there. So if you can see that, see how that works there? So this is pretty good. So this one I think will work. Now I have to find a piece of metal that will jam in here ever so slightly. And I'll clean this screw up, but it's got kind of an indent, so it may in fact have been used for something like this in the past. So that's it there. And it looks like it goes in far enough to be able to push the rod if I find a rod to put in there. So, because we're looking at a micro push on the rod. So it looks like I found a piece of aluminum rod from my stock that fits into this little sub hole right here. And it goes in there, so I can kind of cut a dowel to put in there. And then the screw that I have in there will push on that dowel. So I need to cut that and then shape it. So I may cut it with a saw, or I may chuck it up on my lathe and cut it that way so I can face it off. It'd be nice to be faced off. So I think I'll use my lathe so the work is a little bit more precise. So I've got myself a chuck. It's a 15, and I know that I can put this rod all the way through to the end. Let me see. Yeah. So the drawbar has a hole in the back, so the rod can go all the way through. So I don't need to measure off the size yet. I just need to place this in here and get enough of it sticking out so I can face it off like this. So I just tighten that up like that, and then I want to move my tip over tool rest here so it's in the right position for facing this off. And I've got good gravers I can use on this, so I'm not too concerned about the gravers. So I just do this, and I just want to face this off now. So I could do a little bit of an angle here. So facing this off shouldn't be too bad. I think I gotta move this up just a tad. A tad. What's the measurement for a tad? 3/4 of a jobby doohickey. And I'm going to have to turn this around here a bit too to face it off properly. So I want this to be about right about there, I think. Should do. Tighten that. You see what that looks like. That should be pretty good right there. Now I can make it a little bit of a cone so it presses down on the material. It's not bad. I got it a little closer for that. Pretty good there, but I still have kind of a little lip there I want to get rid of. Oh, Jesus.
Call from Peter Feld. Call from Peter Feld.
So that's good right there. Now I want to take a stone or a file to this to flatten it completely. So now I'm going to finish this off with a stone. I'm going to use a flat diamond grit. I want to put a little bit of an angle on it. Not too bad there. So what I want is I want this piece to be, I flattened it, now I want it to be domed just ever so slightly so it pushes down on that pivot. And now I've got to measure the cutoff on this, which is going to be very minute, to see if I can, you know, cut it off at the exact right place to enable me to put it into that hole. So some serious measurement's going to go on here. And to cut it off at the right distance, I really need to put this in the hole and kind of make a mark on it. So I want to look at the depth of this because it's going to go in here and push against the pivot on the end here. But I know that this is kind of concaved a bit. So I'm looking at this piece here that's going to go in, and it is not concaved, it's flat, right? So the screw will be what pushes this. So I can leave a little more material out, than I normally would have to. So I want to just scribe a line on this piece of metal, or maybe use a marker, I'm not sure. I think maybe a line would work. So I'm going to push this all the way in and use my graver here to scribe the line. So go like this, and then I'm going to be cutting it away, and then I'm also going to be filing it down after. So I want to leave a little bit of material. There we go. I think I got a little bit of a line there. We have another look here. I do. And now I'd like to also measure this. So I'm going to use this gauge here, which is actually for hole. It's a hole gauge. So, but I can move this in and out and measure the plate, or the distance, the depth of that hole. It translates to a depth up here, but I can just use that and then translate that on the lathe after. So when I push it in, I want to hold along the edge because I don't want this to go. I don't want this to go into the hole where the pivot is. So I'm looking at it there, and that's kind of, it's sort of flush there. Yeah, it's kind of flush right like that. So I don't have to do much on this now. Yeah, that should be good there. So that's the distance. That's the distance here that I've got to cut off of this piece of aluminum. So I'm pretty sure that's aluminum. I'm going to chuck this back up in my lathe, make sure I get the right side. Alright, this is the side here I've prepared. So put that in the lathe. And then leave enough to stick out so I can part that. Have another look and make sure I've got the correct side. And then for this, I need to make sure that I've got that the plug is that deep, is just that deep. So it'd be great if I could just grave a mark on this. So let me just set this up so that I can move this into position. Kind of like that. And what I want to do is part it back further, and then I use a file or my lathe to bring it back in, because I can chuck whatever I have up I can chuck it up on with this chuck here and then carve it back after. So I just want to make a mark though, so I know exactly where this thing would be. So that's good English. Not sure if it is. So I'm going to hold the graver with one hand because it's not going to take much work to make that mark, and hold this tool with the other hand, and I understand then precisely Alright, so it's at the top of that thick line I made. So it would be right about here. And let me have another look here. Yeah, that's perfect. And so I'm going to want to part this away, but I'm going to make the line a little bit thicker on this side so you know exactly at the end of the day where this thing needs to be. So I'm going to cut it from this side and remove some material here from this. And check that again. Yeah, so it can go in a bit more. So I could mark it with a marker as well, like a black marker, and that way I know what not to screw with here. But I think I want to part it away first, because then I can play the game of shaving after. So to part it, I think I'll just make a groove here, and I'll use a file to part the material. So I'll just cut it right around here. Like that, and I have a special file I've been using over the years. It's kind of an angled file like this, and this allows me to part this safely, and I've made a groove already for this, so I'll just start spinning and filing until it gets down to the right position. See, it cuts pretty deep, which is nice. So have a slip there. And I'll just cut that and part that. Now when I get close to this kind of falling off, I just take a little piece of Rodico here, a nubby of Rodico, and put it on the end here. That way, when it flies away, I can still see it. I wish people would stop calling. I think my wife's picking the phone up, which is nice. There, and that will just spin like that. So I'll just continue to part. So it's almost completely parted right now, but I'll just see if I can make that little knobby fall on my hand. Not a lot left. Fall on my hand or the floor. Or I'll just do this. There we go. There it is there, bent, and I've taken it off, and there's the end result here. So now I've got to chuck that up and put that back in here and then work it back to where it needs to be. Now the good news, if I fail at this, I can do it about, I don't know, 500 more times. So now I have it chucked up again. I can try to grave it back, or I can file it. Let me see if I can actually grave it back, which would be probably more controllable way of doing it, even though I think a file would probably allow me to take a lot of material off without a problem. So I'll try to basically grave this back. Not sure if I can do that or not, but get out the file now and see if I can work the file. Now, just to make sure I got the right line here, I'm going to measure this again. So I'm going to loosen this up, take it out, measure it again, and make sure I've got the right line here. Because if I don't, I have to start all over again. It's tough. There we go. So that's it there. And now I'm just going to take this, my device here, and measure it to see if I've got the right line here. Yeah, it's the deep line. It's the second one back that I have to hit. So if I put this in, chuck this up, tighten that a lot. I'm looking at the line here, and it's the one closest to the face of the chuck. So I'll work on that for a while and get back. So I'm very close to where I want to be here. Now I'll finish it off with a stone. Drop it in and test it. And again, I want to see how deep the screw will go, because the screw will go a little bit deeper, so I can shave it off just a tad more, just to make sure that there's enough movement in there to put that screw down more. All right, I think I'm done. Now I'm going to drop the plug in and measure it. Okay, here's my test. Just take this plug here and drop that in and see what it does. Try not to drop it. There it is there. I can tell right away that I need to remove a lot more material from that. So it's not even flush yet. And I'm going to see whether when I move this, it comes out. I'm just going to put some Rodico along the edge here in case it drops it. Yeah. I need to take even more material off this thing. Good Lord. It's kind of a minuscule measurement here. I'm just going to pick it up with the Rodico here because I've got to chuck it up again and remove even more material from it. Alrighty then, so a lot of work going into making this world's smallest circular knobby. What I don't want to do is lose it. So I'm going to grab it with some Rodico. I'm over on the other side here, but I'm just going to grab it with the Rodico. I'm going to put my fingers underneath it in case it wants to travel. Well, it wanted to hide inside the collet. So I'm just going to take the collet out very carefully and then dump this on the mat. There it is there on the mat. And now I'm going to pick it up and put it inside here. And that should be it. It's so small. So darn small. So there it is. And I need to put it inside here very carefully. Let me get my tweezers out here. If I drop it, I'm screwed. Alright, so that's in there now. Let me just... I'm just going to see if that's... So that is flush right now. That's in there and it's flush. The question is, do I want to take a little more off? Because if I don't take a little more off, the screw that goes down on this, which is this screw here, right? It won't. It'll press it in, but it won't. It doesn't give me any adjustments. It's so damn close, though. It's I think I do want to take a bit more off, which means I got to put it back in the lathe again. And it's the world's smallest little knobby here. I'm really worried about losing it. That's the tricky part here. So if I grab it like this, like that, and then put it in my lathe. So I have it chucked up in my lathe. All right, I think that's perfect because it's flush with the inside coil. Yeah, which gives me a little movement on this piece here. So I'm just going to place this piece back in so I don't lose anything. Let me just get a close-up of this first. Alright, that's what it looks like. You can see the plug sitting in the hole in the kind of the center of the screen there. And I'll be able to now put the plate on top. Alright, so I'm very carefully putting the plate on top here. Very carefully. Like that. And here's the screw for the plate. I'm very carefully putting the screw in place. Rotating with my fingers here so it grabs. And then I'm just going to screw this in quickly. There we go. Now, and it's still a little bit loose, which is great. And now when I turn this screw here, that's perfect. So it pushes the little plate in, and I think it's done. I'm not sure if all this will work, but it's done. So there you go. So it's the very last step in this process. Here's the platform balance. I think I worked on this a while back. I did something on it, I can't remember, but anyway. It's in fairly good shape. And this pinion here, which is this gear right there, has to mesh with this gear here. So you typically just put them on top like this, and then you do a lot of praying, I think. So, and I look down through the hole here. Are they meshing? I think so. But I'm going to screw this on the top anyway. and see if I can get these things on. I think what I'll use is a special device to start it off. Is that going to work? Might. No, not wide enough. I know I'm going to poke my fingers with a needle over here, but so be it. So be it. This one is really wide, so it's good. So I'm going to just take that and grab the screw like this. Let's hope it doesn't fly anywhere. And I'll just put the screw in here. And this is pretty handy because you can just sort of find home with these things, and then once you get it sort of close, you can just pull back and it releases it nicely. That way you're not farting with the screw. I find these are used typically for screws on balances, on pocket watch balances, to hold the screw while you turn the balance, if it's like a mean time screw, for example. And this is typically a little bit loose to allow it to be slightly adjusted once you've put it in place. Otherwise you'll end up with a misalignment of that pinion in the contrate gear. Is that what it's called? I'm going straight in here, boys. Going straight in. Okay, that's not bad there. I don't know if this is going to work or not. I just don't know. Do not know. I did everything I'm supposed to do, so we'll see if it works. These things are touchy. Could be 200 years old, this thing, or less or more. I don't know. I'm not sure where this one is from, but they tend to have a lot of history. Put a little bit of pressure on here and look at the wheel from the inside. Okay, that's good. I'm getting good movement there, which is nice. I'll just screw these ones down. Tighten them up a bit. Make sure I'm still getting some movement. Yeah, it's the meshing of those gears that's the important part. So if they don't mesh properly, then this doesn't work. The screwdriver is way too small for this job. Always get the right screwdriver, the right tool for the right job. I learned that in the Army. The Army. I'm sure the Navy has the exact same policy. Right tool for the right job. So this one here looks like it's stripped. Not good, but the 3 here will hold it. And I am going to see if I can wind this up back here and put a little bit of... There's 2 barrels here. There's 2 mainspring barrels here. One of them, I believe, is for a chime. And the other barrel is actually the one that is going to run the watch. So I'm not an expert in these movements, by the way. So I'm not sure exactly which barrel I should be winding. I think this might be the watch one, and this might be the chime one. If I look inside the back, they all have all kinds of gear stuff going on. I'll put a very small wind on both of them and see what happens. So let me get out my winding tool, my C1A1 winding tool here. It's funny, I always remember where the drawers are for stuff. Here we go here. So Paul actually gave me this tool and said, here, you need one of these. And that's so he could give me work to do. There, I turned that a few times. I think it's pretty tight, actually. This one here is loose. There. Now, is that for this one or not? There it goes, boys. She works. This is the best part of watchmaking right there.